I'm Austin Lugo.
I'm Andrew Hart.
This is With Nothing to Say.
Let's talk about cat people.
Before we get into this week's film, next week we're going to be watching World on a Wire. I haven't seen very much of his work, and neither of you, but you have seen part one of World on a Wire, but not part two.
You mean,
So,
are you talking about Rainer Fassbinder?
yes, the Radar
Right?
Fassbender.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. I'm not talking.
Yeah.
I guess I should have made that more clear to our audience, to all our great listeners.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you
The
look on,
amazing German filmmaker.
yeah, started in West Germany in the middle of, the when they're still split. And there's a lot of films on here. I mean, I'm looking at Criterion Collection. There's probably 20 or 30 films on here. So there's a lot. His stuff is very available, at least on Criterion, and my guess is probably
Yeah,
elsewhere
it
too.
is.
So that's exciting. I mean, I just to be able to kind of dip into a filmmaker. It looks like he's made a lot of films. So there's a lot of good stuff to look into and watch, and I'm excited. I know I've seen Ollie Fear Eats the Soul, but it's been a long time. I think I saw that in I think it was we are still living in our first apartment, so 2017, 2018. So it's been 8 years since I've seen that, and I'm not sure if I've seen any of his other stuff.
You said you watched it 3 years ago.
Really? 3 years ago?
You have like the worst memory.
I have the worst
I'm
memory.
sorry. Yeah, you like watch this like movie, which is like I don't know. It's just funny. I've never seen it either though, so I guess you don't remember anything about it. Maybe you do. I don't know.
I can remember like images from it, like moments, but
That's funny.
it's pretty vague. I might rewatch it
No, that's funny.
before the
Three years
podcast
ago,
time.
still. I might watch it too. 3 years ago, I mean, it wasn't that. I mean, it wasn't that recent ago, right?
It
So,
was pre-Henry, so I mean, feels like a
yeah,
lifetime ago.
that's true. Yeah,
That's wild.
whatever. Either way, we're gonna watch the World on a Wire time.
Part one and two, the whole thing, all three
Part one and
hours.
two.
3.5 hours is next. It's
He
two
will.
hour and
Well,
40 minutes.
he has. Yeah, it's. But he's made longer stuff. He's made like mini series, which are basically just like long movies, right? Like
Yeah, that's true. I'm
those are
excited.
longer.
But this week we got to watch Jack Turner's Cat People, and in preparation because we had the time, I watched some other Jack Turner films, and I rewatched Paul Schrader's Cat People, which you made
Yeah,
me feel like these two movies had nothing in common, and I felt like a real asshole. But that's not true. The two movies are very
yeah,
they're similar. They're very
it's a
similar.
remake.
Yeah,
Well, it's a remake. Yeah,
it
yeah. No,
is.
the
But
Schrader movie is a remake of the original. Yeah, it's a very different movie, but it's a
I
remake
mean, it's a very
nonetheless.
Paul Schrader movie. Yeah, very like sexy and weird and different. I was
Very
watching.
80s movie too, if I remember
Yes,
correctly.
yes, very 80s. A lot of like it's very erotic, very sexual. A lot of nudity in that film. It's very
Yeah.
interested in sort of that end of it. But I was listening to the not the director's commentary because Jack Turner is dead, and as Val Lewton, the producer, and pretty much everyone who worked on the project. But someone who
Hmm.
did a lot of research. The guy who did the Val Lewton documentary, which is it's an okay documentary. Val Lewton's a really interesting guy as a producer. There's
Yeah.
like no recordings of this man, like he's kind of hidden behind the scenes, but it was very impactful on a lot of RKO's work during this era and really
Yeah.
just
These like horror movies too.
hmm yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
And a movie like this, like this is basically like this movie,
mhm.
Cat People, the original Cat People. This is basically like what all horror movies now are like. You know what I mean?
In what way?
Does
What do
that
you
make
mean?
sense? Because like it like this movie kind of like moves away from like a horror movie being like about Frankenstein or a vampire,
Yeah,
which we still have like movies that have Frankenstein and are have
like
vampires,
Frankenstein.
but like the like Frankenstein and Dracula. But I'm just saying like the real like the horror movies that come out and get like a lot of attention, a lot of buzz, a lot of like wow, like this is like the horror movie of the year that.
hmm
I feel like they all are owe a lot to this movie
Yes.
because it's like, you know what I mean? Because it's less to
hmm
do. There's a lot of like subtext and metaphor, and layers to it as well that I think a lot of like very well-regarded horror films that are made contemporarily get.
Yeah.
Like kind of like this thing about like there's something within myself, right? And what is that? And you could apply it to whatever contemporary issue you could possibly apply it to. Um, so yeah, I feel like this movie has a lot to owe to those movies.
Mhm.
It's basically how they all are today. Again, outside of like, monster type movies, and even those movies probably owe a lot to this movie too, to the
Yeah.
original Cat People. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, no,
yeah,
no.
like I think of a movie like I
Yeah.
think of a movie like It Follows,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like a very celebrated, well regarded, everyone loves that movie. This movie's like pretty similar, like It Follows is more like zombie E too, but it's kind of like a movie about like sexual repression
Mm-hmm.
and just repressive emotions and feelings in general, and sort of like either way, like you live in hell, right? Like because like whether you repress your emotions or you let them out, like it's gonna be like an uncomfortable situation either way. So again, I just feel like this movie owes a lot to like contemporary horror.
Yeah. And Jacques Turner talks about this, Val Lewton talks about this, and the RKO and a lot of the memos they talk about this too, because I'm currently reading uh, the book on Alfred Hitchcock, The Dark Side of Genius, which is great. And he also worked for RKO for a while. And RKO to me, like that's my favorite production company. Like they're a very weird, strange production company. And when Cat People was being shot, which by the way, Cat People was shot in only 17 days, which is absolutely wild. I mean, just a crazy
It was
short.
also shot. It was also shot on the Magnificent Ambersons like
Yes,
set.
the
Yeah,
staircase, which
which is
apparently RKO used in like 15 movies.
yeah. No, this movie is like cheap. Like this movie is made with like nothing
Hmm.
basically. It kind of reminds me of Detour a little bit, which I recently rewatched,
Yes,
so that might be
Detour is
why I'm
great.
thinking of it.
No, no, it's
But
very
like
similar.
but like yeah, like one's a horror and one's a noir, but they both look amazing. They're
Hmm.
both obviously very low budget.
Yep.
They're both very I want to say smoky and foggy a little bit.
Yeah.
Um and they're both very well directed despite the fact that they're low budget, and they're both very short as well. So,
Mhm. And they talk about how part of the reason like it's lit the way it is because there's kind of there's a lot of shadows, right? A lot of high key lighting,
yeah.
and it was less so like I mean, obviously they're trying to create a certain mood and playing with genre and that sort of
Yeah.
thing, but a lot of it had to do with they were working with very small sound stages and they just didn't have a lot of space, and so
Right. I
they
figured you
they
can
couldn't,
tell.
right?
Yeah.
And like Paul Schrader talks about this. They wanted to recreate the chase scene, which is one of the best scenes, right? When the woman's kind of walking towards the bus and she's outside. And
Yeah, that and the swimming pool scene are amazing.
oh God, the swimming pool scene's great.
Very, very unique of its time where they just like turn off the music,
Yeah.
and then just kind of like let them go. Like
Mhm.
very, very good. Very
Very
good.
spooky, very scary. And what's crazy about that chase scene is they're like, yeah, we just shot on it's basically just two sets. Like there's a set under the bridge and there's a set on a wall, and
Yeah.
they just kind of move the scenery around a little bit. And so they're basically just
Yeah.
walking in front of these two places over and over again. And yet, it feels expansive and at the same time claustrophobic. Like I think the fact that they had to shoot this
Yeah.
so quickly, the fact that they had to use certain types of lighting to kind of hide certain things, and Ray RKO, they had a new motto after Citizen Kane came out because Citizen Kane critical success, but did not make nearly as much money as they spent on it. And so their new motto was, oh gosh, what was it? It was it's something over genius. It's spectacle over genius.
Yeah.
Which of course the irony is like the first movie that comes out of this new motto is Jack Turner's Cat People, which I
Hmm.
guess is a little bit spectacle, but the idea is like we're going to spend a lot less money, and it was supposed to be a reaction because at the same time, right, you have Universal's monster picks, like all of those are coming out, like the original Frankenstein and Frankenstein's Bride, and right, and like the Universal monsters, kind of like that whole genre, and so this is their reaction to it, and Jack Turner talks
Yeah.
about how he didn't want to make a monster movie, right? He's not interested in that. He's not interested in kind of that horror. And he says over and over again, like in all the interviews that, because he made quite a few horror films, and he's like, horror lives inside the mind. Like once you show that
Yeah.
horror,
That
you lose it. like it's no longer scary because
Yeah.
you can externalize that.
My
Which is
my point continues to be
yeah,
made.
yeah, right. And it's exactly what you're saying with like films like like modern films like It Follows, is they're very interested in the idea of the horror that you can't see. Of course, a great example, a film that we talked about a while ago was Pulse, right? Like the scariest thing about that film is like
Yes.
it plays inside your mind, and it's all the things, it's all the nightmares that come up that are not externalized, that they don't talk about, and that's what makes this film so great. You know, he talks about that pool scene. Uh, He's like, I couldn't get the leopard in there, so I just moved my hand in front of a light. And yet, like in your mind, with the sound design and just everything going on, right, you assume that it's a panther and it's beautiful. I mean, just
Yeah.
the lighting in there is awesome because they're bouncing lights off of the water, so it's creating like this very strange shimmering effect, and the echo of her screaming.
Hmm.
It's wonderful. It's, I mean, just the set itself. It was shot at the bottom of like some,
Yeah, it looks.
like it used to be like a hotel, but the hotel shut down, so it was basically just like this abandoned pool that they that they went into, filled with water, and it's spooky,
Hmm.
man. I mean, that scene is, and then I guess the two leading ladies, they absolutely hated each other. These two women, like in real life, just like
In real
avoided
life.
each
Wow,
other.
that's interesting, huh? I
Which
guess that adds a fun layer to it
it
because they
adds a
also
fun
hated
layer
each other in the
because
movie.
you know I mean, you can definitely feel the tension between these two female characters,
It's very
and
good. Yeah.
and uh in the commentary, he calls up the woman who plays the cat person, and he
Hmm.
says, you know, my favorite moment was turning on the lights in the pool and saying that line to her. You know, which is just basically some of the fact of like, you know, why are you screaming? Like, why are you scared? And it's just like
Yeah.
the nastiest like little line, you know.
Yeah.
But it
Like,
works
why are you
perfectly.
scared? Like,
Yeah, like why, right? Like
yeah,
it's
and like I love that scene. That scene too is great because she gets like a sense of satisfaction of like scaring her, freaking her out, basically
Mhm.
over kind of nothing, basically.
Yeah.
Like it's very interesting. It's like her powers are very strange and mysterious and unexplained.
Yes.
We kind of figure that she turns into a panther of some sort. But when
Hmm.
she's in the swimming pool, it's like kind of strange. It's like I guess she's kind of stalking her, but she can't really see very well. Like the
Right.
what's her face? Woman in the pool.
Hmm.
Her name was like Amy or something like that.
Something like that.
Um, Alice.
Alice.
Yeah, and like yeah, like yeah, and yeah, like they're not they don't get like a panther out for the swimming pool scene because obviously it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
Um, well, not that it wouldn't make sense. It would just be it wouldn't be it would be logistically difficult. Uh,
Because they're
and
using real panthers.
yes, they use real panthers occasionally in the movie.
Yeah,
They use a lot of real animals in the Schrader film, if I remember correctly.
they do. Yeah, there's a lot of
Um,
real panthers in that one
yeah,
too.
yeah. But I just like those scenes because I like the swimming pool scene. I like the stalking scene just because like I love that they turn off the music and just
Hmm.
kind of like let like the editing and everything and the sound
Yeah.
of everything just sort of like sit in really well. I just
Mhm.
I really appreciate that they decided to because I just feel like these movies just blast music. You know, they're just like constantly
Yes.
like blast. You know what I mean?
Movies of
Like
this era,
these
yeah,
movies
like
from
the
these
late 30s, early
times,
40s.
they
Hmm.
blast the music during every scene. You know what I mean? So it feels very novel and it feels very novel and very kind of almost like shocking when like a
Hmm.
movie like this is like it shows some restraint and they turn off the music for like a while.
Yeah.
So I really, really like that.
Yeah, and I remember listening to Val Loon talk about this, and he was very adamant that there not be music in scenes like this. Like he really wanted to pull away from that, and he had to fight very hard for that because, you know, every movie during this era, right? Lots of music going on all the time because they thought, well, like this is how movies work, right? This is how we've always done it. We need all of this music, and
Yeah, like
to
yeah, and just like it's all the same, like really, really
the same
loud,
like six
like
songs.
big band, like classical music, like just
Hmm.
like blaring, like anytime we turn on a movie from this, it's always like, you know, like
Like at
it's
all
always like
times.
like at all times, like through the beginning credits into the movie, and then when the characters start talking, they like lower it, and then it's just like that's like probably like one of the worst. I guess like tropes or compulsions of movies at this time, I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it and it's funny because I watched some of Jack Turner's other work for this. They had three of his films on Criterion,
Yes.
and the
I
thing
like Out of
is,
the Past. That's one of the best movies.
Out of
I
the Past is
love Out of
great.
the Past.
Um,
Great noir movie. Maybe like up there with like Detour is one of the best like noir films. I love that movie.
yeah, there's a lot to be said about Out of the Past, and I watched. I'm trying to see what the other two films were. I'm looking right now what the films that I watched were. It's been a minute. It was Out of the Past, oh, Berlin Express, and Nightfall. And what's funny about Berlin Express, kind of it's the contradiction of this film is Berlin Express is full of voiceover, full of music. Like it's doing everything this film is trying not to do. Berlin Express is not
Yeah.
a very strong film. I don't know if Jack Turner just wasn't feeling it when he made Berlin Express, or if there was just a lot of control that he was not part of. But there are a lot of problems with that film, and so it's interesting
Yeah.
to kind of compare that to films like Nightfall or Out of the Past or Cat People films where
Hmm.
they really where sound design is very impactful, which I think is pretty unique for this era. I mean, this is sort of we're kind of getting out of the His Girl Friday and the screwball comedy era and moving, when we get into the 1940s into sort of a different era, and we're almost kind of in that we're kind of on the cusp of the big Hollywood area of these kind of like giant films and musicals and that sort of thing, and we're kind of in
Hmm.
between there. And sound design in both those eras, right? Like kind of screwball comedy era and the era to come aren't really highlighted, right? They're kind of like not big parts of the film, so it's fascinating how much this film is made by sound. I mean, going back to that chase scene again, right? Like the only sound there is just those footsteps, right? The clicking heels,
Yeah.
and it creates this
Awesome.
this
And then
syncopation.
and then when her feet and when her what's her name? Uh when Irina's feet when her
Hmm.
they stop, you're kind of like, "Oh, what happened?" You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to like the Alice. I like too how like Alice sort of like it's one of those movies too where it's like the movie does a good job of kind of like where scenes kind of like interact with one another, right? But where earlier in the movie they go to that pet store, right?
Hmm.
And the pets and the animals and the cat and everything they freak out, right? Like there's something going on
Yeah.
with her, right? It's kind of unexplainable, like what's going on. As a viewer, we're like, what's going on? Okay,
Yeah.
what's wrong with her? Because she tells the story a little bit earlier in the movie, right, about like how her village had like witches and they
Hmm.
were what's the word? They were freed by King John of Serbia,
Hmm.
and he defeated evil, but there's still some evil left, right? There's still like that's basically her point was like there's still like some like offset, like there's still some things going on, right?
Hmm.
Like not all of it was annihilated. Um, but she takes it seriously, and so the scene where they go to the pet store and the animals freak out, it sort of goes in turn with Alice, right, where she can sense something is wrong like right away. When she's being like stalked, right?
Yeah.
She can like feel that something is wrong. So I like how those things are kind of like connected and lead into one another very, very nicely, very simply.
Hmm.
It's not like a terribly complicated like thing to do,
No.
but it's still very, very thoughtful.
Hmm. Yeah, and thinking about the set design, they do use obviously a lot of sets from other films, like just RKO sets that were already pre-built because it was cheaper and easier
Yeah.
to make an Alien of 17
Why
days.
would you? Yeah, you might as well.
Might as
I
well,
was like
right?
right
They
there.
got to
Okay.
recoup their losses somehow. And one of the great things about set design is, and I didn't notice this until the second time that I watched it, and when I was watching the commentary, is the first time that you're in her room, there's cat memorabilia just all over a room. There's that great picture of like cats staring down at the wall, and there's kind of like cat figurines, and it's not like so many that it is obnoxious, but it's just enough that kind of plays with your subconscious. Like it's kind of there in the background, and it's kind of right. The cat's just like, and it's not just in that. It's not just in her apartment. It's wherever they go. Like they'll be like, oh yeah, like there's a cat. There's like a picture of a cat. There's a statue of a cat, and it's so strange how often you kind of see like it. Right? It's not
Yeah.
like a conscious thing, right? It's not like you see it and you're like, oh, here's a picture of 27 cats. It's not being like thrown at you, or kind of smashed over your head, and yet it's there. And later on in the film, when she's gone to see the hypnosis, which that hypnosis, or I guess not, he's just a I think he's just a psychiatrist, but he's basically doing
Psychiatrist.
hypnosis.
That scene that scene is so funny when like I do find that scene really funny when they're like talking and
Hmm.
he's like the conclusion of the scene is like you need to see a psychiatrist. Like, I don't know why I think that this scene is so funny, and I don't think this movie is very nice about psychiatry. It doesn't feel
No.
very good about it. I guess you could say like a little maybe a little it's this is it's critical of a lot of things. I think it's critical of like um kind of science in general or like um sort of like it's sort of like critical of like objectivity in a way, right? Or
Mm,
one of the, it's one of those horror movie things where it's like, you know, this woman is like, and you could apply this to so many different things, right? Like because it's like that thing of like, oh, you could apply it to like women and sexism and
mm.
how like women aren't like taken seriously,
Yeah.
right? When they feel this or that way, right? And so you could apply it to that, right? Where it's like she's telling the story and she really believes that it's true, and everybody else is very dismissive. They don't believe her. They don't get it.
Hmm.
But it's real to her, right? So, and then it just turns out to be real anyway, right? It turns out that she did have some kind of like
It was
curse or
right all
something like
along.
that. Yeah, it was right. Oh, she was right all along, and then she was dead. So, and yeah, like I just love how like the solution to it is like we need to get you a psychiatrist. So that made me laugh a little bit.
I mean, I can understand the era, understanding a bit about mental asylums of that period and the period just prior to that, and really up until, I mean, right, I mean, well past Titicut Follies, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Being committed is a pretty dangerous thing and not a great place to be. So I can understand the appeal to criticize psychiatry and the science behind it. But I do think it's interesting the idea of objectivity is played with here, and the fact that it is right the male characters, which is really just the husband and the psychologist psychiatrist guy. They're the only ones that the viewer just has to assume that they're objective. Like they just know what they're talking about. And yet all the female characters, because right, it's not just that Irina, right, is telling the story that she turns into a cat if she makes love, which is why
Yeah.
like they're in a loveless marriage, or like sexless, not loveless, sexless marriage.
Yes, they're not having any sex. Yeah, because like she's afraid of turning into a
Because
panther.
she's afraid that she's going to turn into a panther. And then
Yeah.
Alice too, right? Like she tells them like, "Hey, Irina's turning into a cat and trying to kill me," and they're like, "No, no, no, that isn't happening." Right? All of the female characters throughout the film, no one ever believes them. Like their objective truth to the male characters is just thrown away. Like, oh, that can't possibly be true. Like we would never, that would never happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I mean, it kind of ends the right. It dooms Irina from the beginning, right? I mean, the film starts with her drawing the picture of the cat, right, being stabbed with the the sword, and
Yeah, and she tells him straight up, like, I can't love, like, loving
mhm,
someone is very dangerous. Like, I
mhm.
do love you, though. Like, I can't, she basically just, like, I can't help myself, though. Like, I want to get married to you. But, it's just like, and it sucks at the end when he's kind of, and she kind of has she kind of has like a epiphany by the end of the movie. But by the end of the movie, he's like, sorry, but
Too
we should
late.
get a divorce. And you're like, God dang it, too late. Yeah. Like, too late. It's like, what?
But I mean, the epiphany
That
doesn't.
sucks.
the epiphany doesn't even matter because like she gets rid of all of the cat
It
stuff,
doesn't.
but the fact is like if she has sex with him, she's gonna turn into a cat. Like she basically just like like everyone
Hmm.
gaslights her into thinking that she's not gonna turn into a cat, and so she's like, I'm all right. I think you're all right. Like I'm gonna have sex with you. And he's like, no, it's too late. I've already fallen in love.
Yeah, this movie's very sexual, like of its time too. That's another thing about it that I like, and that like for like a pre like for like an early 40s film, yeah, it's just like
For
very
a
like
code
wow,
film.
like
Hmm.
you see a woman's naked back. That's crazy. What the
And,
hell?
and Val
When she's in
Loon
the bathtub.
and Jack Turner talk about this a lot, and it's one of the best parts about watching.
These mother these motherfuckers were probably like, why can't we show like like why can't we show any nudity? You know what I mean? It sucks we can't do that. Like they were probably so frustrated and
Oh,
they just needed to live like 30, 40 more years and then
right.
then they die. It's like too bad.
And I think that's part of the reason. Like Paul Schrader is almost kind of living out the cat people fantasy, is he's doing all the things that
Right, he
the
does,
original
yeah.
cat
He
people
does
couldn't
everything,
do.
yeah.
Right? He's just kind of like leaning into
Yeah,
it,
that's true.
and Jack Turner and Val
Yeah.
Lewton, they both talk about this, and it's great watching the audio commentary, and I strongly suggest everyone watch it because like half of the film is just the guy being like, yeah, they couldn't say this line because of code. They couldn't say this line because of code.
That's so funny,
This line.
man.
Like the film is
Like
very clearly like
but
just cut to pieces. And
it
like
was
the
very
things
successful if I'm not mistaken. The
it
movie
was
was very
extremely
successful.
successful.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, based on the budget. It made like 10 times its budget or something, like almost immediately. Because again, it was like of this era. It was doing the same thing that, right, the kind of Universal monster pictures were very successful at this time. And so they were hoping to play off of that, and they did it very successful, which is why Jack Turner goes on to make a bunch more movies for RKO that
Mhm.
are, I guess I haven't seen his other monster movies, but I I've seen enough of
I'm
Jack
sure they're
Turner's
good.
stuff that I'm sure they're good, but I think Cat People's his best film. Like I think it's better now of the past. It's certainly better than Berlin Express. It's better
Oh,
than
Out of the Past is so
Nightfall.
good though. Oh,
Out of the Past is
I
good.
don't know about that.
And Out
I
of the
don't know
Past is
about
good.
that. I think they're
But
I for me they're like they're neck and neck.
yeah, I don't know though. I mean I love a noir, and I'm always gonna, I typically I'm gonna raise a noir almost above everything else. And this isn't technically a noir, but it is playing, even though
I
it's
like
not
Robert
a
Mitchum.
noir, it's doing a lot of the things the noir does. And I mean, not just in the way it looks, but in the way it's kind of telling its story. And it's still playing into a lot of the noir tropes. And having, I mean, like, right, you could say the husband's sort of like this detective that's trying to figure it out. And there's that great scene, which was,
Hmm.
it reminded me of an Ernst Lubitsch film. And they're inside where I don't really understand what this guy and this and Alice, what they do for work. Do they work in like, are they like architects? I don't really understand
They're
what they do. What are they?
they are yeah, no, he's a marine engineer
He's an
and
okay. They're
like
engineers.
and Alice is like his like assistant or something because
Okay.
she's a woman.
Well, obviously.
Yeah, so she's not an engineer, she's an assistant. So,
But I mean, that set looks really cool. But there's that one moment. Well, they do
yeah,
it
that it
twice, right?
does.
Where they're at night, and the light it's lit
Yeah.
from the table, so like the light's coming from like waist level and it's shooting
Right,
up.
yeah. I'm assuming that's like an architect or engineer thing where you put blueprints on there so you can see
Hmm.
things like much more clearly from underneath. Anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry. I like that. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
it looks so good though. I mean, it's just
It looks
and
cool though.
and they talk about this
Yeah.
idea of like how Jack Turner was very interested because like typically in films we create space uh, horizontally, so like we create space across the frame, but because these spaces were so small, he had to create spaces through the frame, right? So having someone kind of close to the frame and far away from the frame and creating that sense of depth, which makes it looks
Hmm.
really beautiful and incredible. And it creates this sense, which I think a lot of films, especially films that are shot, which a lot of films are now, when they are shot with that really shallow focus, which, that people are like, oh, well, if we shoot with the shallow focus, it looks cinematic. But the problem is you're
Hmm.
creating a very two-dimensional image. And what doing something like this, where you have this really deep focus, which is something that, right, was very much of this era. I mean, they were just like dedicated, if you watch a lot of these films of the 1940s, is like getting as deep focus as physically possible. And what that creates is that real sense of like depth, like you're part of this space. And so something can look a lot bigger than it actually is. So a lot of these spaces that they're shooting in
Yeah.
surely weren't that big, but because of the way they're lit and because of this use of and shadows, I think does a big part of this too, right? By purposely creating shadows and darkness, then when you light something up that's far away or close, it creates a sense of it's almost an optical illusion that's creating a distance that might not be there. And so that office scene, I think, is the perfect example of that because a lot of the time like they don't even have the option to create the depth. I mean you know you think of like the staircase, right? Like there's
Well, they don't
just
have a lot of options anyway. It's not like they have like a crazy like special
no.
effects or editing things that they can like implement. Like they don't really have like a lot of options or choices anyway, you know?
But I think that's why this film works so well, and I think it's why it works so
Yeah.
much better than Paul Schrader's Cat People. You know, I don't think Paul Schrader's Cat People is a bad film, but I think relative to this film it is a
Yeah,
lot weaker.
it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's certainly
Yeah.
not one of Paul Schrader's best films, but I think I think part of the reason Paul Schrader's Cat People fails where this one succeeds is Paul Schrader's film, it's very clear he could kind of do whatever he wanted, and he's given that space not only for
Hmm.
like, you know, the violence and the
He,
sexuality, but
he
also in like
he
budget
also
and
probably
time.
did too much coke. He probably did too much
Probably
coke at the time, and
there's
he's
probably too
just
much
like
coke
he's
going
probably
on.
high. He and everybody on who made that movie was just super high in coke, and they
100%.
created a bad shit movie, and it's just like you know, the original Cat People is more measured.
It is. It is very much more measured, and I think, you know, if Val Lewton and Jack Turner and the other filmmakers in the original film had gotten their way, I don't know if they would have necessarily made it a better film. You know, I'm very much of the belief that sometimes constraints make the best piece of art. That having those constraints and
Yeah, I
purposely
can.
given
Yeah.
those constraints, I think you see. I mean, you see that with a lot of filmmakers. You know, I think M. Night Shyamalan is the perfect example of kind of a modern day person who's, when he's given those great constraints, right? When he's kind of given this small budget, he can make really fascinating, interesting films where, you know, when he's kind of given this unlimited budget, sometimes he makes films that aren't necessarily my type of film. And I think there's a lot of filmmakers. I would argue that really every, you know, artist kind of exists in that world where when we're given unlimited time and power, we often don't make our best work. I think we're because of the thing about constraints is kind of we're forced to work through that box, right? If we're put inside the box, we're like, all right, how do we make this box interesting? How do we make this space that we're playing with?
Yeah.
And you know, when you're only given 17 days to shoot, right? You're kind of given, you're like, all right, we just kind of have to work with what we have. And you know, I think
Hmm.
casting was a big part of this, like casting two women that hated each other before the film started was probably very necessary because you don't really have the
Yeah.
time to build those types of relationships, right? I mean, of course, they're professional actors and they can kind of create that, you know, in their performances, but I mean, we're still this era where, right, we're pre,
Hmm.
you know, the oh gosh, on the waterfront, we're pre Marlon Brando, right? Or like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're pre Marlon, right? So we're pre that kind of method of, you know, internalizing, right? Performances are still very externalized, and so having, and so when you cast, choosing people who already sort of have these feelings for each other, which I still think is valuable today. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we should be casting people who hate each other to be in a film together. However, it can be valuable. I mean, James Cameron, right? He uses that in Aliens or in Saving Private
Hmm.
Ryan, right? They have everyone except Matt Damon, right? Go and do like a boot camp together, right? Filmmakers still do this. They're still creating those sort of internalizations, and I think it works very well
Hmm.
here. And I mean, these two female characters, whenever they're on, Irina and Alice, whenever they're on screen each other, it's very clear they hate each other. Like it's just like the most
It's great.
despicable hatred. And
Yeah,
so
it's like really, it's a lot. It's a lot of jealousy. Yeah,
mhm.
too.
It's great. I love it. I think it's perfection,
Hmm.
and you don't need or you don't need to work, you know, in any specific actor's method because they just like that's just how they feel towards each other. And so, you know, and they don't have, I mean, they really don't have a lot of scenes together. You know, most of the film, right? It's either her or her, right? It's either Alice or Irina. That
Hmm.
it's very rarely that they're together, but whenever they are together, you kind of see it. And yeah, and it's interesting that this film, which I think is very unique to the era, is, and I would say even still is, the blame isn't put on Irina or Alice, right? They're not the bad guy, right? They're not the like the cheating hussy. Instead, like the blame, I think the blame is on him. Like he's very clearly acting in a way that is maybe not nefarious, but he is definitely acting in a way that is inappropriate, and he is making decisions. Although, but the irony, of course, is that the females are the ones that are punished, right? Like he does something wrong by like flirting with her and kind of, and falling in love with her, and yet fundamentally she is the one who's punished, which I guess then goes back to this idea of like the double standard of the female,
It's true.
right? Where like they need to be
Yeah.
hypersexualized and like right if they're married, like they should be having sex with their husband all the time, but then they also need to be
Hmm.
these chaste, perfect women that never have sex, and that
Yeah.
this idea that they need to be both at all times, right? This double standard that they need to always be, these very like sexy, beautiful women, but then also like very like cold and standoffish
Hmm.
and right and be very chaste and the homemaker
Hmm.
and right and both these characters are kind of opposite ends of the coin, right? Alice and Irina, they're kind of the two sides of this, right? The Irina who's trying to be this chaste woman, of course, from fear of
Hmm.
turning into a cat person, and then Alice
Hmm.
who's kind of the more sexy, kind of outgoing, working girl, right? She's in the office.
Yeah,
She's
she's like no, she's like more normal though, I guess you could say. She's less exotic, I guess you could say. Like like so it's those, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
like because like even when like Alice like tells Oliver like I love you, I'm in love with you, and she's all gets all romantic and stuff like that, and but Oliver's just like, I feel drawn though to Irina, like
Yeah,
he's like excited by her,
yeah, he is.
but then of course it reaches a point though where he becomes, tired. He
Mhm.
tires.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, man. I mean, I really just find, and I think really the film is these two women. I mean, the psychiatrist is really an interesting kind of insert.
He's like the worst psychiatrist of all time.
He's real bad at it. He's real bad at his job.
He doesn't really do anything in particular. He like stalks her too. He stalks her, which is interesting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There's
Because
and
he becomes the stalk. The stalks is this yeah, and then at the
becomes
end,
the
right? Like
stalker.
and at the end it's
Lust.
his pushiness and
Hmm.
his lust, right, to like have sex with her,
Yeah.
you know, is what, it climaxes, right, with her turning into a panther. Right? It's like trying to get to a giant cat. So it's kind of funny how like I think that scene is again another kind of like thing about psychiatry or like what they call it transference,
Hmm.
right? Like the issue of transference. It's like the very long drawn out debate about transference, right? Like, patients falling in love with their psychiatrist and
Yeah.
psychiatrists falling in love with their patients, right? Like because of the transference thing. And uh I think like yeah, this is another like uh it's just kind of like once again another like, you know, like another, hit on psychiatry because this guy's supposed to like help her and he's
He's real
he's
sleazy.
lustful, right?
Yeah.
He's sleazy, yeah. So I find all the stuff with the psychiatrist very, very interesting. Um, and the thing too with the right, he talks about like the key,
Mhm.
right, which is
Yeah.
very useful. Like he says a lot of useful things in it that are very true, right?
Hmm.
Where like about the key, right, and about like it's kind of interesting how like she goes out of her way at the end to like open the cage because it's almost like it basically like it's I think like the panther in the cage. I'm supposing that it's meant to symbolize like death or suicide or something like that, right? Because she opens it and it kills her.
Yes, and that
So she
that
opens it
yeah.
with I think
Hmm.
yeah. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say that they actually talked about it. Is they were very worried that
Yes, the psychiatrist.
yeah, yeah, and they were very worried that when they presented the ending, which she opens the cage and the panther kills her,
Oh.
they actually had to discuss it with like the code, whoever decides like what can and cannot be released, because they were afraid that it would present itself as suicide, which it is. I mean,
Hmm.
she's committing suicide, right?
Yeah, it
And
is.
the idea of the key is like she's, as long as the panther's locked in the cage, right,
Hmm.
she can ignore it, right? She can kind of like, okay, it's there, it's away. But the moment
Hmm.
right, and the thing is like the moment she releases it, the moment she attempts to be her full self, she is like
Yeah.
destroying herself. She's ruining herself, and that key, right?
Yeah.
That great dream sequence with the key and the sword,
With the
right? The
key.
idea of,
Yeah, and the key overlays the sword, right? Because like he uses the sword to kill evil, right? And
hmm
it's like kind of like, yeah, like the sword, the key, like it's like a twofold thing, right? The key like opens up the cage that contains her true self,
yeah,
but it ends up like killing her at the same time. So it's kind of like this twofold thing almost.
yeah. And then of course there's also that thing of like the key having sort of this the idea of the key and the lock, right? The masculine and the feminine.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
that kind of
true.
like, right, like once you put the key in there, like it's the two things becoming one thing. And it's again like, right, it's the moment of her having sex, the moment of like, right, of being married, like actually married, like the
Yeah.
moment of being complete. That's the moment that ruins her. And
Yeah.
and so like her suicide is, it's almost enough. I mean, it's literally like, right, you see the drawing at the beginning and it's the dead panther. And right, she ends up, and I think it's interesting too, is like when they when she commits suicide, when she dies, she doesn't die as a human. She dies as a panther. Like her dead body isn't human. Her dead body is a panther. I don't know what to make of it. Like I don't know what
Well, no, like,
that's
well,
supposed to
yeah, like
mean.
the, well, like, yeah, like the big coat, right?
Hmm
The big black kind
Yeah.
of furry coat, I
hmm
think does a good job of sort of like illustrating, like, she's the panther or whatever. Um, yeah, I just love that ending. I just love how, like, yeah, she like keeps on like returning to it and she keeps like seeing it and like pondering it and thinking about it. And I just love how she goes back and she like finally like releases it. Um, and the psychiatrist I think breaks it down, right? He's like, we have like a death, the humans have like a death drive, right?
hmm
Like, they have like a death drive and uh you're scared of it, but you're also compelled by it, right? And so and you could also place that over Oliver, right? Like he's scared of Irina, but he's also compelled by her.
hmm
Um you could go on and on. You know what I mean? Like it's such a good movie. Like it's
Yeah.
just like it really is like a really like it's very rich text
hmm
that you could easily apply to plenty of contemporary societal and cultural issues at the time and now.
Yeah.
And again, like, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that to me is one of the most interesting things about the film is the return to the zoo time and time again. And it kind of goes back to Edgar Allan Poe's idea that we as humans are drawn to death. He has this it's not a short story, it's basically an essay, in a late 19th century essay where he talks about, the reason that we're afraid of heights isn't because of the height itself. The reason we're afraid of heights is because there is a deep unconscious part of us that wants to jump off, right? That there is this urge in all humans to kill themselves, and in her there is that urge to release the panther, right? And it's almost like from the beginning, I mean, right, with that drawing of the panther, it's like she knows from the beginning that releasing that panther will kill her. Like she knows that. And yet, right, even though she knows that it will signal her death, she doesn't anyway. I mean, there's that great scene in the middle of the film where, right, it's after the dream sequence with the key, she she grabs the key and you think she's going to open the cage, right? You're like, oh, this is the moment. Like she's going to release the panther, and she grabs the key and she hands it to the zookeeper. Like that's a great kind of trick of the mind, right? And in the ways that cat people is kind of playing with our own objectivity and subjectivity and our own expectations, and I think that's again it, right? It's Jack Turner's idea of horror comes from inside the mind, and it's the expectations that we create in our own mind. Like that's what makes the film scary. And so going back to the zoo over and over again, like eventually that she's going to open the cage. Like she's just going and going and going, and yet like you don't want her to. Like you're like right, but you know that she has to because like she has to release like who she is. Like she has to release kind of this inner being, and yet that will inevitably lead to her death. So yeah, that ending is great because it feels so like final and yet inevitable. And
Hmm.
I think that's the great thing like a great movie does is it sits in this place where it is simultaneously surprising and yet inevitable, right? Which is exactly what it's like. From the beginning, you know she's gonna die, you know the Panther's gonna kill her, and yet at the same time, you're still surprised when it happens, and
Hmm.
it just fits perfectly.
I will conclude my thoughts.
Please do,
Um, well, yeah, it's a great movie.
yeah.
Uh,
In the
it
podcast.
it's well, yeah, it's like it like looks great. It we can't understate how good the movie looks.
Yeah.
It looks great. It looks fantastic.
Hmm.
And again, we can't understate how like rich of a text it is too.
Yeah.
And how entertaining it is, how just like truly well done. And again, like every like big horror movie, I'm always gonna think about this movie from now on. Whenever I see like a new horror movie come out,
Yeah.
that's like about like I don't know, like there's like a secret, there's like a secret going on, there's
Mhm.
like it's not a monster, but it's like it's within ourselves, like I always think about this movie, I think from now on, because this is the
It's the
text,
one.
it is
It is.
it's the one. So and you got to give it props for that, but it's also just overall very good movie, very well made, very well edited. It's just like an incredibly well made, great, entertaining uh movie that has aged very well. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with a 9 out of 10 on it.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that you're saying. It's funny. Much like Irene, when I first watched this film, I didn't feel very drawn to it, and I was like, oh, it's fine. And yet there was just something about it that kind of sat in my mind, and I went back to it again. I watched it multiple times, and I watched Jack Turner's other films, and I watched the audio commentary, and the documentary about Val Lewton, and of course part of it is like justifying like, oh well, it's for the podcast, so I'm just doing my research,
Yeah.
but the truth of the matter is like, we've done a lot of movies. We've been doing this podcast for 6 years, and there are plenty of films that
Hmm.
I did not feel drawn to watch their other work, or to watch the audio commentary, or to watch the things that went with it. And I
Yeah.
think part of the reason why I was so drawn to this is, um, just talking about like kind of how rich that text is, right? Like there's just so much
Yeah.
subconsciously here,
There's a lot going
and
on.
watching. I mean, I've watched it probably 3 or 4 times now, and every time like there's something new that I'm bringing to the experience, and I think that's really what separates a great film from a good film. Is a good film is fun, you watch it, you're like great, but a great film like you're drawn to it again and again, and there's just something
Hmm.
there that just never like it never goes away. And I think you're right, like a lot of horror I think really cuts back to this and is bringing a lot from this, and I think this is really
Hmm.
it's a fundamental piece to the puzzle of modern day horror, and really just every horror film that was made after. Like I think you kind of have to give props to this film because it did a lot for the genre as a whole. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna give this film a 9 out of 10. I think it deserves it.
Once in a while
All right, y'all.
I
Thank you for listening. You can find this podcast wherever you get podcasts. You also have it on Instagram, TikTok,
once in
and
a
YouTube. I with
while
nothing
I
to say,
think
and thank you
of
again.
you.
Thanks again.
I reminisce on days gone by when you and I were new. Once in a while I dream, hoping that you'd return to me. But I know that you're not coming back, so once in a while I dream. Each moment passes like hours. Each day is dark as the night. Since we have ended, I just pretend seasons change. Sad how the feelings go away. We were in love, but now it's over. So once in a while I dream. So sad how the seasons change. Sad how the feelings go away. We were in love, but now it's over. So once in a while I dream. Pardon my plea, but would you allow if once in a while I dream?